So we will move on to new business. First item on the agenda is 510 Washington Avenue, parcel ID number 60137534.000. The Walter Anderson Museum, consideration of a recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission for an exception to the Historic District sign regulations. And that's a mouthful. So Wade, if you'll introduce the request.
Sure thing. All right. This is a little bit of unusual. I don't think you've had anything like this before because it doesn't come up very often. But this deals with the Walter Anderson Museum, WAMA. It is in the historic district, the Old Ocean Springs Historic District, Zone CMX2. And on your report, you see there's a little photo of the existing sign, which was administratively approved some few months ago for the museum. In this case, WAMA is asking for approval for a second sign, a wall sign for the museum. This will be in addition to the existing freestanding sign. In the cases of historic districts, they are allowed, museums are allowed one sign in a historic district with the provision that the Historic Commission can recommend to y'all that in cases of they feel it's appropriate, that they can make a recommendation that the zoning board consider approval of a second sign. And that's about as far as it goes. It doesn't give any kind of parameters on the size or anything like that. Of course, it would have to go to the Board of Aldermen for final approval, too. But in this case, the WAMA board has asked for approval for a second sign. The freestanding sign is just over 17 square feet, and the sign that's proposed will be a wall sign on the side facing Washington Avenue, but at the southern end of the building. You've got the photo in your report of what's being proposed. Is approximately 70 square feet in at least the area that's covered by the sign. As you can see, there would be individual letters attached to the wall of the building. The HPC looked at it. They thought it fit in. So it is coming to you with a recommendation for approval for that sign. There's also a letter in there from Julian Rankin, the director of WAMA, about the reasons for it. And also had Maddie Codling from the WAMA staff here if you have questions for her about that, about the sign or anything else. And that's the staff report on there. I can answer questions, or Maddie's here also.
All right, thank you, Wade. And I guess the first question I have really is, there is no sign, as you said, there's no clear, hey, it can only be this big in the new sign. It's just really the way we make recommendations to the Board of Aldermen. The Historic Preservation Commission makes a recommendation to ZAB. And ZAB can either go either way on that recommendation, but then this ultimately, once again, still goes to the board, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And yeah, there's nothing that I found in this that limits this to the 25% variance, that you're limited to on variances. This would be just an exception to the historic district sign regulations.
Now, I know a lot of our justifications for proving a variance, are some of exceptional narrowness. Think that does not have to occur in this instance. It's just simply reviewing the Historic Preservation Commission's findings. Yeah,
basically the exception, the criteria for it, at least is to both HPC and you, is that the proposed sign is consistent with the purpose and intent of the historic district, and historically authentic. The latter one is kind of hard to put some teeth to, but they get focused then on the intent of the district.
I'm sorry, Wade, did you need somebody to help in here today, or
No,
are you going to be able to lock up and everything?
I'll take care. Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Yeah, I think Carolyn's come over for the planning commission, but yeah, we're good for everything. Thank you for checking.
Thank you.
Okay. So go ahead.
No, you got it. there anything else you would like to add to what Wade kind of introduced at this time, or he did a pretty good job of nailing it?
He did a great job at it. Yeah, the sign.
If you do, I'd ask you to come up and state your name and address, just for the record. Is that
Is that here?
microphone on?
It will be. Yeah, there you go.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Maddie Codling. I'm the Director of Collections and Exhibitions at the museum, and I'm representing the museum on this motion. But the sign for the museum is going to be rather recessive. It's not going to be intrusive. It's not lit up. So it's going to be very in fitting with the rest of the facade of the museum. Just going to be able to see us a little bit better and be able to see where the museum is from if you're on Washington.
So, I have a quick question.
Of course.
There is a sign in our packet that's there now that is on Washington.
Right, yes.
And so why does that, is there a
So
feeling that that's
that
not
one
adequate?
is a little bit smaller and it's at kind of like an angle for the museum, a little bit more decorative. This one is saying, you know, just in big letters like you see in your packet, Walter Anderson Museum of Art. And from feedback from visitors, what we've had is people just can't find us. And if you go down Washington, you know, it's a gray building. There's lots of foliage in front of it. And so people just mistake it as a business, or just a regular, like, law office or something like that, and not necessarily the museum. So we're just needing a little bit more wayfinding.
So, I have a few questions.
Sure.
When you collected this data
Mhm.
that visitors couldn't see the sign, I know recently those motifs were put in the street. Was that
Right.
before or after that was done? 'Cause to me, that is a real eye catcher. now.
It's been throughout it. So we've had this from the very beginning when I was working there, and then we've had them up to last week. So,
And then there are some trees.
yes,
So this is going to be an unlit, just like a brushed metal.
correct, yes.
So I don't know how that's more visible.
It is a little bit reflective, so people will be able to see it better. We have cut back the foliage a little bit, so you'll be able to see where the sign is. They're on the side of the building. So it's just gonna be very recessive, but eye-catching.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Good advertising.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any other questions, comments, discussion?
Is there any neighbors to be involved with this at all about signage or anything like that?
Nobody wrote in.
No, I mean, we do, there's notices not sent out on a situation like this. We do have the sign that was in front of the museum, and we have had no calls about it, inquiring about it at all.
Was a notice sent out for historic?
Well, no,
Okay.
no, it was not a notice sent out. I mean, it was put on their agenda, posted on the website, just like they do with everything, and plus the sign identifying it that it will be on your agenda, but as far as, no, there's no provision for direct notice to property owners.
Okay.
So again, we're saying the Historic Preservation Committee, they're recommended okay with this.
They did. Some of the statements at the meeting were that they liked it. They felt it was appropriate for the building, fit in well. You know, they liked the design of it and the placement on the building.
Yeah, it looks better than the siding to me, actually, the sign.
All right. Any further discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, basically as written, but to approve an exception from the UDC sign regulations for the Walter Anderson Museum at 510 Washington Avenue to allow a wall-mounted sign of 70 square feet as described in the application and sign graphic. And as approved by the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All right, the motion passes. So this will be on consent agenda, Board of Aldermen on Tuesday.
Correct, on the next Board of Aldermen meeting on consent.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, 2780 Bienville Boulevard, parcel ID number 60121135.000, requesting a variance to the minimum number of parking spaces. And Wade, if you'll introduce this request.
Just a moment.
The recorder has to do his second job.
Just trying to bring this down so I can just show up on the, here we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. I'll give you an idea of where this property is located if you're not familiar with it. This is a former car wash, more or less in front of Greyhound Stadium on the south side of Bienville Boulevard. I usually see off the service road that runs to the south of Bienville. Also, just to the east of this is the access drive to Greyhound Stadium. It's actually owned by the school board. This specific request is for a variance from the minimum number of parking spaces, off-street parking spaces for a retail building. It is in the CH Highway Commercial District. The car wash was a permitted use. What's proposed specifically is to provide parking at a ratio of 3.2 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. This is the typical requirement for the UDC is at least four spaces per 1,000 square feet. That's for most retail uses. The minimum parking requirement on the UDC depends on the type of land use. It varies from one space for 200 square feet for like restaurants, high usage type of uses, to one for every 250 for clinics and small retail stores, then to 1 to 300 for banks and offices, things that typically don't have a large parking demand for them. In this case, the applicant, Ms. Luce, is requesting the variance because based on the number of spaces that the architect had fit on the property, plus the space of the property, and also an electrical easement led to the request. As you can see, I don't know if it shows up very well on that, but on the eastern end of the property, there's a existing billboard, and then also overhead electrical lines that lead to that, and those tend to limit the buildable area, and they could be considered as a unusual condition to justify the variance. I just do want to see if I can go to the next site plan a little bit. Yeah, that shows the billboard there on the at the top of the screen. Okay, that's the site plan. You can see that's in your packet also. The red and blue lines indicate the proposed building location. You can see the Highway 90 service road is at the top. But just to both your benefit and Ms. Luce's, that like the report says, that development plans also have to go through our design review process, which is an administrative process where we look at setbacks, parking location, access, and other things. Just need to point out that the access of the parking spaces to the service road, we'll have to get approval from the Mississippi Department of Transportation. And then also the access drive to the east, like I said, is owned by the Board of Education. So their consent approval will have to be got to allow development like it's shown here. So there's more work, but right now just the basic is to request the variance to the number of parking spaces. That concludes what I have to report, and Ms. Lewis is here if you have questions for her, or if you have anything that you wanted to say. Yeah,
You
go
want
ahead.
me to go up there?
Please, yes.
Okay.
State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jessica Luce. My address is 1801C Government Street, Ocean Springs. That's the current address of my business. So forgive me, I'm new to this type of thing, but I own Coast Aesthetics on Government Street, and I was looking to build a little retail complex. Two-story downstairs, upstairs. Downstairs with some retail spaces. I have a GNC that's interested, and a few other, maybe a boutique store. On the top, a pediatric clinic and Coast Aesthetics, which is my business. And so the top would be all by appointment only. It's not really where people, not a lot of foot traffic. So I was asking for a parking variance, and this design, we're not married to this design. I was simply working with an architect trying to figure out how I could put, this many square foot and how we could arrange the parking spaces. The billboard does present a problem, and that first picture that he had actually had the billboard on the wrong end of the property, but the survey showed where the billboard actually is. So I'm just trying to figure out if it's possible for us to, put a building here the size that we need plus the parking spaces. And I was hoping to get a variance approval of 3.2 spots per 1,000 square foot of business space. And like I said, I'm not married to this exact plan. Like he said, it has to, go through, I'd have to hire an architect and design it and see how we can build it out. But nonetheless, the space is too small to put 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. So I was hoping for 3.2.
Nick, is that what, 40 to 32?
Yeah.
And then the one-way road that you see here, that'll come in off the service road and then out on the Ocean Springs School District maintained road. And I did present to the Ocean Springs School District to get approval for that. Essentially, they had no problem with it. They needed more information, of course. They needed, official plans, but I don't want to pay to have official plans drawn up until I get the parking variance approved, and then I can move further.
But you got a verbal from them?
Yes. They said they had no problem with it.
Is there any I didn't drive by the property, I'm sorry. Is there any parking spots attributable to the Greyhound Stadium there?
There's a whole parking lot. There's a whole parking lot directly behind this. There's like a fence, an electrical easement.
Yeah.
Also, whenever I first made the, this is just a side note, when I first made the offer on the property, it was supposed to be 5,000 square feet bigger than the survey came back because of an electrical easement. So had we still had that 5,000 square feet, this would be a moot point. But the survey came back and cut off essentially, 5,000 square feet across the back because there's a power cord hanging. But there are a lot of spaces where people can park overflow. There's a whole entire parking space just behind that fence. I mean, not ours, but theoretically, yes, there's a lot of space for overflow parking.
Okay, thank you.
I think ultimately in the redesign, I submitted this about 30 days ago, I would not do an overhang and just do a straight 2-story building. And I think we can work that out. Just have to get the right architect to draw it out for me.
So that wouldn't have the drive-through like that anymore?
It would still have the same type of drive-through. It would just not have the overhang where it's a covered drive-through.
Will that then possibly give you more parking, I wonder?
Probably not a whole lot more parking. I just have to, I think no matter what, if we don't get the parking variance approved, it probably won't work out just because this space is awkwardly shaped and the billboard's there. It's just gonna make it hard to put really much of anything
The
there.
billboard's on this end, right?
It's on,
Yeah.
Correct. So when you say a straight, building, no overhang, does that mean the bottom's 4,000 and the top's 4,000? So now
Or
we're
maybe
8,000
like
square feet?
45, 46, and
Okay,
45,
okay.
46, about there.
I was just trying to say if you're going 4 and 4, now we're at 8,000, and now that's 32 parking spaces.
Yeah, I
at
totally
4
know
if you
exactly
did
what
4
you
and 4.
Originally, I wanted this building to be 12,000 square feet, and I've had to just knock it smaller, because of the survey. So, 12,000 is not going to work out, and that's just fine. So I was hoping for like 9-ish.
So those white, I guess, rectangles, those are parking spaces, essentially. And I guess those parking spaces along the Highway 90 service road would back out into the service road.
Correct.
And I guess that's not just the driveway connection, but is what we think MDOT's going to say about
Yeah, that's-
backing into a
yeah.
I
service
think
road.
most of those businesses do now.
Well, if you go down, I know Smoothie King, as you go back to the west, I guess, you've got, your charter, your bank,
There's
your
that small little
Smoothie King.
strip where like Joachim Realty and a couple little things are.
So the older ones are
That's
like
like the
that.
oldest
Yeah,
one
that-
there.
And so that would be, the thing is, maybe MDOT was okay with it,
Without everybody.
20 years ago, but, what does new access management, say? So that's my big concern is, approving if we were to approve 3.2, then MDOT say no, and then are you coming back to say, now we need 2.5?
Yeah, that's a
Um,
legitimate question.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing it up. I did not contact the MDOT, I guess, because so many other businesses have that exact situation where they back right out. I guess I didn't know to contact them, but if you, I can figure that out, how to contact them and get permission. So maybe this could be a approval contingent upon me getting that approved.
So, well, I think, Wade, regardless even if we approve, I mean, it's still contingent on MDOT saying yes.
Exactly, that's correct, yes.
Yeah.
And we just want to point out that, she's requesting the maximum 25% variance.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah.
Coming back for an additional variance is not a possibility. That we have to fit in with whatever size of the building there is.
Okay.
So make contingencies in the motion based on MDOT, right?
Well, that contingent, I mean, that's already
That's a given.
kind of part of the design review is, hey, do you got your MDOT permit? And do they say okay? So that's taken into account at that stage of the game.
I mean, this would give her at least her designer, architects, and the guidance, regulatory guidance of what they can design for the property.
My question's on a general note of, I guess, which comes first as far as, seems like we need a more solid site plan and knowing how it's going to be laid out, and then we can make the decision that it won't fit in that configuration on the site.
I've drawn this out so many times, maybe 100 times. After my little kid goes to sleep, I'll just sit and draw it and try to figure out how I can fit it in. And if it's not possible, it's not possible. But I know that I won't be able to fit with the 4 parking spaces per. And that's okay. We'll just go to Plan B and pick another piece of property. But
Which I'm just thinking it could be less than the 25%. In the end of the day, if we do exactly, this is how the site needs to be because of the business and because of the,
Not such a big variance.
you can't go
I may
out.
not need. At the end of the day, if I find an architect first to access this for me on Government Street. But at the end of the day, if we can put the building and we have more parking spaces, that would be wonderful. I mean, I'll of course make them, and it's going to be beautiful too. But I'll of course make the maximum parking spaces that we can possibly have.
And also, just FYI, there's a shared use parking section in the code of ordinances. So you could, in theory, go to the school board and say, hey, the only way I can kind of make this work is not only having this connection, but can I say I can use 8 of your parking spaces to make my business whole?
Oh, I didn't
And-
know that.
And and so you've got to get a letter saying, hey, the times we operate, and this business will be operating, are not the same peak times. So in that instance, what's the maximum you could do on that wave in the shared?
20, I think 20%, I recall correctly.
Okay.
Of the
On that.
businesses,
Of the,
of her business.
of her business's required parkings could be shared by an off-site. I guess the only thing is, looks there's a chain link fence separating it, so
Yeah.
accessibility from here to that is a little maybe problematic. But I mean, yes, it's it's a school board were willing, they could allow some
Maybe
spaces there.
Staff parking, something like that.
That's
yeah.
possible.
We actually had that electrical easement across the back. While we can't put concrete on that, it's just a 20-foot wide piece of grass with just overhanging electrical wires. Staff could park there. I wish I had that 20 feet. It would be great. And then I could, pave it, and then I wouldn't have an issue. We could have parking in the front and the back. But that electrical easement threw us off.
MDOT owns that.
So we could, staff could theoretically park there, just would be under a power line, but I mean, we park under power lines all the time.
That's not an issue if they did. right?
So, just in electrical easements owned by power companies and stuff, they generally have just rules about having clearance from the power line to whatever that surface is. So, like, if they say, hey, we need, 20 feet of clearance, as long as you're not building the site up several feet in this area, they're generally good with it.
Parking.
Yeah, well, and because they like to, I guess I'm not an electrical engineer, but I don't know if they worry about arc jump or, just what.
Or antennas or
what-
anything, antennas, anything extending above a vehicle that might touch. the
Yeah,
power line.
yeah. And I know several instances where, they'll give an easement, so the power company gives an easement inside of their easement to allow parking or something.
Like, I'm
like
sure we
that.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to put a dumpster there, because then the dumpster truck.
Picking
would have
up.
to be too
Yeah.
tall.
Yeah.
So that would be like a no-no, but
Mhm.
maybe just regular
And
cars.
that could solve all of
Which is why in my heart, I knew that it would be okay to have like the less parking spaces, because I want my patients to have enough parking, but I knew that staff could, park back there.
Sure.
And so that made me feel better about it. The whole upstairs, we'll probably only have about 5,000 square feet of the retail space. The upstairs, hopefully, if I can get a pediatric clinic to commit, most likely that are committed. It'll just be 2 medical clinics, and like I said, those are both by appointment only.
But then retail downstairs, and that's a lot of moving traffic.
I'm hoping a GNC, maybe a little juice, like healthy juice. I'm hoping it's like an overall health kind of
Okay.
health
Go
style
along with
complex.
your,
Mhm.
yeah, your business.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
I thought it would be nice for Ocean Springs.
Why? And everybody else has to chime in on this, our position. It's important that,
Yes. Where is the billboard on that
Can you
site plan? I
scroll
know
up a
it's,
little bit, or
I know
can
it's
you-
on the east side, and you can see.
Do you have
just-
this survey in your papers?
Yes, I see it on that, but I'm just wondering where it's at in relation to,
It's right there.
in just relation to this site plan. I
It's
mean,
right
is it off page?
No, it's right here.
So if it's right there, then I guess you also lose some parking spaces there.
Yeah, that's why you can't park, that's
And
why
then
you
you
couldn't
can
drive
put
the parking
yourself
out this way.
Yeah.
That billboard,
down the
and that's
street.
also why we couldn't do the parking across this side and make the driveway this way.
So who,
So,
does this property own the billboard? So would you own the
There's a
billboard, or would there
Lamar-
be an easement?
It would be Lamar owns the billboard,
Uh-huh.
and there's a 15-year contract, and I also had not meeting, but a phone call with the
Yeah.
Lamar supervisor and asked him if it would be a problem if we parked under the sign, just to see what the rules are for that. And they wrote me a letter, emailed it to me, and said that it wouldn't be a problem if I put, and I was also concerned that a 2-story building might block the sign and they might have a problem with that.
Mhm.
And they told me that a 2-story building would be fine and they would,
Okay.
sign the paper saying it was not a problem. It's a lot of pieces in this puzzle, huh?
Yes,
You
there
don't
is.
own the property, right?
I bought the property
You did buy the
contingent upon getting a parking variance.
Because I saw there was a different name for the owner.
Yes, I bought the property contingent upon the parking variance, so I haven't paid for it yet.
Uh-huh.
And if the parking variance gets approved, then I'll pay for it. And if the parking variance gets approved contingent upon the Mississippi Department of Transportation, that's even better for me because it gives me a chance to make sure MDOT is not gonna have a problem with me, doing that. And then, after it's all approved, I'll pay for the property.
Okay. So that billboard thing, it transfers from Lamar?
It transfers, and they have a 15-year, and it's $5,000 a year is what they pay the owner of the property.
So Wade, is there once you, come to this board for the, parking variance, can you come back at a certain time and there's no, how does that work? Like if it was, I guess I'd like more, what I'm thinking, get more information on the actual layout and what access you can go and what you can't go.
Like to revisit.
Is it,
Like if we feel like it's going to get passed, then I can, invest more money into an architect. I just didn't want to, have a big plan drawn out and then you say, oh no, we can't do that, and then I've lost all that money. So I wanted to kind of check with you guys before I did, a real official plan because, clearly it's not even my property yet.
I mean, I don't know how, once the variance is approved, it's done. I'm not sure how
you know,
you could come,
Can
I'm
you-
not sure
can
having
you-
to come back, what authority you would have to do anything.
I think the question is, can this be something that's tabled
Yeah, like a revisit.
until we get some additional information? I think is.
I
is
guess
that-
that's a better way of.
Yeah,
Like
not-
you did
not-
pending,
not-
kind of an open
yeah.
pending status.
We're
And
not
I'm happy to
saying
come
we're not
back.
saying
Do you guys
yes.
meet
We're not
once a
saying
month,
no.
or-
Just,
We do.
Yeah, and I don't know,
Second Tuesday.
I don't know how the Mississippi Board of Transportation meets. Do you guys know?
so I can probably get you a contact.
That would be great.
To reach out to someone and just see what they would think. They may want a lot. They may want your architect drawings and stuff too.
Yeah.
It's going to be the thing. A lot of people like to see the more information.
I understand.
you know?
I totally understand.
Yeah, and so all that may just get tied up to getting the same information to
Mhm.
make those decisions. But the talking to someone at DOT could probably lead you in the direction of, yes, that sounds like something we might allow, or, no way, no way,
Yeah.
Jose, we don't do that anymore. So,
Okay, that's legitimate.
yeah.
What do you want to consider tabling it to next month to enable her to contact MDOT and see if they would be receptive at all? What is your, I guess, the feeling of the board on it?
One thought I've got is that the variance may not be needed depending on how this starts shaping up.
I think the variance will be needed either way. 'Cause-
May not, depending on how the layout and your
Or
square
it may
footage.
be,
Oh, because we may be able to
15%,
borrow
10%.
parking
Yeah,
spaces.
it
Okay.
could just-
I just don't want to do 25% when it may be 5%, maybe a couple of parking spots and we're done, but,
Yeah, and
Like there's wiggle room maybe if you do play with the staff parking area and just little things like that it might work out differently for you.
and I know every application and piece of property is different, but I know a similar case for a house. Someone just said, I want a max variance all the way around. We said, well, what for? And it's like, well, I don't know what I'm building. And so it's, well, show us what you're building, and then we can talk about it. So. All right. Anybody have any additional questions or anything for Jessica? No. Okay. All right.
Month delay put any burden on you?
No, sir.
Because you'll be able to work with DOT.
I'll have to figure out how they meet. I this is my first time to do real estate. It's super exciting, but you know, I'm just learning about it. So I'll have to figure out
Crash
how.
course,
Ma'am?
crash course.
Yes, absolutely. Let's dive in. So I'll have to figure that out, and then, like I said, I've drawn it out a million times, and there's no way I can fit the 4 plus this building that I want to build, or that I hope to build. And so yeah, I'm happy to do what I have to do to meet with the DOT and get back with you in a month. That's just fine with me. And if you feel like it'll probably pass, then I'm happy to pay the architect to go ahead and draw something for me. I just hate to invest $6,000 and then be like, oh, that's not going to work.
That was my question. Carry on.
All right, no other comments or questions? Does anybody have any further discussion or like to make a motion or?
So you're talking about, what's the good word, tabling or
Yeah.
picketing? What's the?
Up the table variance, and will we either make it until applicant can present or and or
Defer.
next meeting?
Just defer to the next meeting would be, I think, the way you can make a motion.
Is that the
Simple
only
enough.
stipulation is the DOT, or is there anything we want more concrete with the site
You
plan?
know, if the crossover road, it sounds like you've communicated with Ocean Spring, I mean.
Yes,
the school board.
I was at their last meeting, which was just last Wednesday, I believe, and they said that they had no problem with. They want a plan too, and I told them the same thing. It's not my property, so I hate to pay an architect to build. You know, if you guys were like no way, or if they were a no way, but so far everybody, I mean, they said yes. Essentially, they said we don't have a problem with it. It's fine. And I told them that they're welcome to use our spaces too for their overflow for games.
Sure.
But
I
they
was
would probably
gonna
don't.
say that's
Reciprocal.
an option if you wanted to work on that letter,
Mhm.
maybe.
I told them that they were welcome to use our parking spaces too, and they said
Sure.
that they would probably do that anyway. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, they will. Well, they
Put
won't
it in
care.
writing,
That's right.
and that'll give you more spaces too.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's, I think it's fun, especially.
I do feel like that if we do the 25% of the 3.2, I don't feel like that anybody shopping there will ever have a hard time finding a parking
I
space. I don't think it'll be an issue, just genuinely, because I think there are tons of other areas people can park, and we're not high flow. So I don't think anyone's going to have a hard time parking, which would be an issue for me if they were, because where we're at right now, my patients complain constantly about not having a parking space because we're in the same building with Blue Dog Bistro, and that's all that I hear. We can't find a parking space. We can't find a parking space, and that's the main reason why I'm moving, is so that my patients do have, a place to park. And so I wouldn't be willing to do it if I didn't feel genuinely that, the 3.2 was going to be plenty of parking spaces, because like I said, my patients complain daily. We can't find a parking space. We had to park way down the road.
anybody? Further comment, motion?
Kind of got some parts of the motion. Somebody wants to help me through this. It's a unique one. Mike, you got?
I'm good, I'll help you.
Let's give it a go. All right. So I'd like to make a motion to table this request for a variance at 2780 Bienville to allow for a 25% reduction in parking. Request applicant return at the next ZAB meeting with more information on the site plan, DOT, and school board approvals.
Do we want to add the adjacent business letter, or whatever? we
The
want?
parking, what did you call it, shared?
I think that's covered under just some
Okay.
additional information
Right.
from the
School
school
board.
board. Yeah, and maybe it's just a connect, you could connect to my driveway over here, and maybe it's shared parking and so.
However that
Yeah.
shakes out.
Yeah, whatever, they're willing to allow.
Did I do okay, Wade? I'm missing them.
I think you got,
Yeah.
makes enough, I think you got it
That is my
covered.
motion.
All right, got a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor with an aye.
Uh,
Aye.
All right, none opposed. So this will be tabled until, or deferred until the January meeting.
Do you already know when that is?
The second Tuesday in
The
January,
10th,
which would be the 10th.
January 10th. The
Oh, wait, no, the 11th. No, wait a second, I'm in 2022.
I was gonna say,
Don't go back.
I just read an ad in the newspaper that said
January
10th.
Yeah, so 10th, it's the 10th.
6 o'clock, not 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock.
Sorry, 5 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah.
Wrong
6
meeting.
is planned.
Wrong meeting.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you
Okay.
so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next month.
And then number 4, new business, item C has been withdrawn. We have no audience members or audience requests, so if we get a motion to adjourn, we'll adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
A motion, a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those with an aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. See that? We did have something to go on.
Yeah. I think it'd be a nice addition to
We
the
table.
city, personally. I like smoothies.
You'll want to give me your funds?
Uh-huh. There you go.
Thanks for planning.
Thank you very much. Amanda will appreciate it.
Want us to swap out our names on the front?
Sure.
We can all be Amanda. Was. The different layers. She got a tricky
Will
piece
we
of
ever
property,
see
huh?
anything about zoning requirements for this new